Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to have you here. So Chris is a copywriter that's going to be talking to us today about how, copywriting is everything in your personal brand, because you can't really have a personal brand without content, and content requires copywriting. Even if you're doing a speech or something, you still need to have content and be able to articulate yourself in words. So
100%.
over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Louise. So hi, everyone watching. So my name is Christopher Melotti, and I am the founder and head copywriter of Melotti Media Copywriting and Message Marketing Bureau. So basically, long story short is we help you develop your brand's core messaging, tone of voice, and identity, and then write results-driven marketing content with award-winning copywriting services, in a nutshell. So like you said, Louise, my specialty as a copywriter is helping people basically articulate everything that they need and everything that's important to them to the people who matter most, which are their customers. And to do that, we help, really get the message out there from the people who know it best, which is you, and as in the people watching, and then helping it, making it customer friendly and accessible to customers.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to ask you, what are the biggest hurdles or roadblocks, or you think the biggest problems people have with copywriting? But I just have one first, because I've noticed this with a lot of clients. It's like,
Sure.
they know what their unique selling point is or what they want to say about themselves, but they're just not conveying it or articulating it well. And it's not powerful, and it's not kind of stopping people in their tracks. And there's a lot of content that we kind of just scroll over. We don't even notice it. So
and that's, look, Louise, you nailed it. And that's the biggest thing. So it's hard to write about yourself, and it's hard to write about your business and convey it in a customer friendly way. I mean, pretty much every one of my clients comes to me for this reason. And it's because they know their brand, back to front, left to right. And I don't get in the way of that, because I know that they know their brand better than me. However, what they struggle with, and what the common challenge is they don't know how to, like you said, articulate it in a customer friendly way. So for example, I see this a lot in tech and a lot of innovation and crypto and all that latest stuff that's going on. Is you have engineers and incredibly smart people that build these platforms that pretty much do everything a client or a customer needs, but then they put it out there and they get no sales. And it's because a lot of the time they've written it based on their experience and all of their assumed knowledge. And so what happens is the client or the customer, the ideal person, overlooks it, like you said, Louise, because they just can't understand how it's relevant in their lives. And that's something that a copywriter does, is we specialize in helping make your brand and your service offering and your product offering relevant to a client. And that's hard, because especially when you're in the company yourself, you assume that they know what you know, or it's hard to talk about what you do. And so that's what a copywriter does, is that fresh external perspective, where we can take all of that info and turn it on its head to think about who the client is and really shake things up.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is hard. It's a skill, right? Like copywriting. I feel like people think because they know how to write that they should just automatically be good at copywriting, and don't realize that it can take years to get good at this.
Yeah, and it's a misconception, and I understand where it comes from. I get it, because the thing is that we write every day. We're reading every day, we're writing every day, and so we take for granted that it's the same thing, but it's not. Like, for instance, when I'm writing video scripts, clients often give me a video script and say, "Can you polish it?" Like I did one just last night, and I realized that it took too long to get to the point of the script. And so while he was like, "But I wrote it," I said, "Yes, but a person wouldn't watch this, because by the time you get to the right information, they've tuned out." And so that's a copywriter. Yes, we use words, but what we actually do, the skill behind it, is that articulation piece. And also the fact that we can look objectively and say, by this time, the client would not engage with this content. So then what I did is moved it up and rearranged things and changed the flow. So like I call it an upside down triangle, where you capture people at the real big top, where you've got like all this stuff that pulls people in and then draws people to a point. And it's all those kind of things. And my background is 15 years of marketing. So it's integrating that expertise with the writing is what I really offer my clients.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us a few of the biggest mistakes that you think people are making with their writing, their copywriting, things that we should be aware of, pitfalls.
Of course. Well, okay. Well, let's start with the very obvious one of grammar and spelling. That goes without saying, and it's totally okay. We're human, and things like that happen. But grammar and spelling and the misuse of words can distract people. So what it is people often go, "Oh, you lose credibility," but it's actually one step worse. Is that when you make a spelling error, people stop listening to your message or like looking at your message, and their mind drifts because they go, "Oh, who wrote this? That was a silly mistake," and they have a laugh, and then off they go. And it's hard enough for people to engage with your content already before giving that barrier. So that's the first one. The next one is what we touched on just before, which is assuming knowledge. So it happens so much. You'll see a website that goes, "This platform is going to change business." And then you scroll a bit further down their website and it goes, "Revolutionary tech that's going to make your day much faster." And you go, "Fantastic." And you scroll a bit more and it goes, "This is going to change the way you do it." And then you go, "What do you actually do?" And by that time you're bored and you leave. And see, a lot of brands make that assumption that people spend more than 5 minutes learning about the brand. And so in that time, you need to have already captured their attention and talk to them about what they need first. So that's another very, very common pitfall, is that it takes too long to get to something that resonates with a person. And that's, again, what a copywriter does, is takes all of that messaging and sharpens it, which is, sharpening your words, because that's what it comes down to. The other one is skipping steps. Like, for instance, they go A to B, and then they go E and F. And the person reading it goes, "Whoa, like, I didn't quite get how you went there." And then they leave. So for instance, on a website, it'll say something like, accounting software that helps you speed up your processes. And you go, "Okay, I get that." And the next step says, "Our software allows you to input data and make your backend admin much faster." And then it goes to the next part of sign up. And you go, "Whoa, like, not ready yet," right? And this is another common mistake that a copywriter fixes, is that we look at the customer flow and we say, where would their natural steps be before you've earned the right to sell to them? And it's these kind of things. So that's another challenge. Sorry, Louise, stop me if No. I'm just
thinking about it, because you're absolutely right. And I see this in marketing just in general, that, with ads, Facebook ads, for example, where they're like, they just go straight to selling and they've not even built any
the credibility and trust.
Credibility and trust, which is what personal branding is all about, is you have to take people on this journey to build that credibility and trust.
Yes.
And start by empathizing where they currently are, rather than jumping ahead to the solution.
Big time. I mean, and that's a big one. I mean, others are being focused too much on you. And not on your like clients, by saying, like, we help you do, like, you being customer centric puts them, and it's not just pandering to them, it puts them in the mindset of you're there to help them. Whereas if you go us, people go, "Where do I fit into this picture?" I mean, that's a very obvious challenge. That's amazing.
And I heard this funny thing about doing an audit of your website where you count how many times "we" and "us" appear in the website.
It's a good practice. And I'm not saying I don't want people to watch this and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to get rid of it all." There are times where you have to be like your About Us page, and parts where it's like, "We help you do this." But at the same time, it doesn't, saying our products are amazing. And I see it all the time, is like, people and brands get addicted to saying things that matters to them rather than their clients. Like, for example, they'll say 96 years of experience. And while that's good to have somewhere in the copy, leading with that, and if you think about your client or your customer, is that relevant to them? Like, really think about it. Would they go, "Oh, 96 years, easy choice," right? And it depends on your context. Some brands, it might be important, others it might not. So it just depends on the context. And that's, again, another thing a copywriter does, is we look at your industry, and, for a lawyer, that might be something that applies, but for a paint product, maybe not. So it's all about context, industry, all of that relevance that really sort of helps you get it. And the last one I'll give you, Louise, a common challenge is, despite what you might think, is formatting. So you can have the best words ever, But if it's very poorly displayed, especially with today's audiences with instant gratification, it causes a big problem. So like big, long, bulky text, and things that like lack of white space and all this kind of things makes it hard for people to take the time to read, and it looks intimidating. So, you know, it's little tricks like making your website small, like big headings and small bits of text that people can snapshot, you know, and earning their attention before you get to a longer piece. You know, embedding photos, using multimedia and videos and things like that. You know, the list goes on, but like, these are the kind of things that I have seen a lot of clients come to me. And as a copywriter, I fix all of them. You know, it's not just, hey, make my words pretty. Do you see how like many challenges I help brands overcome? And that's where I do my best work.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, gosh, there was so many nuggets in there. I think one of the other things I've noticed is with personal brands, they have to write their bio, whether that's on their LinkedIn profile or whether they want to pitch to guest post and publications. And people really struggle to be able to present themselves because they're worried that they're being vain or overinflating themselves, or they just struggle to articulate themselves in the best light, if that,
especially in Australia. Like in America, they praise each other for, and it's a great thing. It's a really healthy thing because they say, yes, I'm the best. In Australia and New Zealand, we have tall poppy syndrome, which is, you know, if we go, oh, we're quite leading in this space, you yourself go, oh my God, I can't say that. And then other people go, oh, you're leading, right? But the reality is that in some contexts, like a bio, you have to say these things. You have to prove why you're the best choice for them. And you don't have to go overboard. But what I would say is maybe stick to the genuineness of what you are. If you are being genuine about what you're boasting about, that works, because people undeniably see it across your LinkedIn, all your bios. They see how you present. They see how you do videos and podcasts. If you always have that persona, people go, well, you know, he or she deserves that praise. Whereas if it's like, you know, if it comes out of the blue and no one's ever seen anything about you other than that, it can be received in a little bit of an obtuse way. So it's all about genuine, you know, promoting in bios.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. And I just think a lot of people are underselling themselves.
Big time. Like
all of their, you know, certifications or things they've achieved are kind of hidden in an About Us section that probably no one's read to the bottom of the page and seen all the amazing things they've done. So
and you shouldn't do that, because the thing is, a lot of these awards and accolades and things that we achieve and the clients we work with and the case studies that we do, all of these are hard earned, and they also help our customers choose us. So we shouldn't be hiding them away. We should be proud of these achievements. You know, as long as they align with your genuine perspective, they should be included in those bios, because it's a healthy thing, and it could be the difference between a person choosing you and someone that, you know, choosing one of your competitors. So, but again, it's in the wording, and that's what I do with a lot of clients, Louise, is when I'm doing their bios, is I don't ask them to write a draft. I ask them to fill out a form. And then they can put the truths down and I can weave the magic. And then that way, then they don't feel like they're overcommitting, and they get something back and they go, oh, wow, like this is a nice thing. And that's how I approach it.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. So if someone's deciding to work with a copywriter because they either recognize that they need help doing this, or they just don't have the time, because copywriting, especially if you're not a copywriter, it takes a long time to sit down.
Ages, yeah.
It really does. And then you look back at it and you need to refine it. And yeah.
Oh, it happens all the time. Like someone will say, oh, I need to do my website. And then they'll go, no, I think I can do this 5 pages myself. And I'm like, yeah, no worries. So I'm always here when you need me. I never push people. And then 6 months later, they'll come back and go, still haven't done it. Can you just do it for me? I need it next week. Right. Yeah. This is the very common process, and that people underestimate how long it takes for them.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And so there's obviously a benefit to using a copywriter. So I'll give you an example.
Sure.
There used to be this mentor that I followed, and he wrote his emails, and then it was obvious when he got someone else in the company to write them for him, because it lost the touch of him. Yeah. And so it's like, but you could tell the person wasn't even a copywriter that he'd used. It was just a team member.
Oh, right.
Well, which doesn't help, because, you know, so it's kind of like, obviously the personal brand, the individual has the expertise. So they can't just leave it completely to a copywriter to do everything, because they have to come up with the topics and they need to share their expertise. And then a copywriter can put it into the website or blog posts or craft it into content. So how would someone work with a copywriter? How do you have the best relationships with your clients? Where do things break down when clients are like sort of not briefing you correctly, or like, because it's a two-way relationship, and it takes both parties to get like, you know, the best outcome. And I always heard behind every great agency is a great client.
Yes.
Because they briefed correctly, or they provided the right information, or they...
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Look, Louise, I could talk about a million things right now, but I'll try and hone myself in. So what I would say is, it starts like the first thing, the objective of every brand is consistency, and consistency in tone and personality and core messaging, which is what, as a copywriting agency, we do. And I'm not trying to sell it. I'm trying to say that to answer your question is, what I do for all of my brands and all my clients, including my own, is we write down what our personality is and what our main messaging is and our approach is. And that way, then you can use that across your website, all socials and things, so that we avoid things like that, Louise, where like people get an email and suddenly it's not that brand anymore. And that can be incredibly jarring, because like we see some great brands out there that had huge followings 10 years ago that now have lost it because the brand has lost its essence. And so that is incredibly damaging for businesses and brands. And so having that core messaging, which is like your brand guidelines, but for your wording, having that first and foremost is important and essential for all of your consistency, because that way then your team is consistent. So then your clients or your customers always see the same brand and they can relate to it and it aligns with their values. So that's number one. But then to get to how to work with the copywriter, like you said, is it really comes down to a clear understanding of your objectives. And so what we do is we first and foremost really get to understand a client. So it's not about like, hey, do us a blog, and we go, yeah, sure, like give us what you need and we'll just pump it out. And the reason why we don't do that exchange kind of stuff is because that's when you get blogs and messaging and things that just have nothing to do with your brand. I mean, that's what you see in like places like Fiverr and all that, because they just want a basic exchange. They just want someone to ghostwrite it and then it's like done. Whereas and that has limited potential simply because your customers can't resonate with you. And whereas when you have someone that has taken the time to understand what motivates you, what motivates your brand, what motivates your customers, suddenly you can get together a piece that you can be proud of and use across all of your socials and across all of your platforms, because it reflects your brand. There's no like obtuseness to it. There's no like random out of the blue. And that also comes down to your Google ads. Right? If your Google ads are completely, perpendicular with your brand, people go, is that the same thing? And then they click on it and it gets the wrong message and they land on your website, which is different. That all of that can really break your brand. So to work with a copywriter and a quality writer, you need to be able to sit down and talk through what's important to you and what your objectives are. The clearer you make that, and the more that you have good, solid understanding of what you're looking for and the outcomes you're looking for, that helps. So you don't need to know like exactly what you want, because that's, a copywriter's job. But what you do need to know is like maybe your goals. I want to be known. I want to become a key opinion leader. I want to write a book so that I can do X, Y, Z. I want to increase my sales. I want people to land on my website and know exactly what we do. When you have those objectives, then a copywriter can understand and look and see what you're looking for. So definitely to your point, Louise, is when you go to a copywriter, have clear thoughts in your mind, and then they can revolve around you. That's how I would do it. And then a good copywriter should save you the time and the effort and the expertise and all of that, so that you can then get back to what you do best.
Yeah. Okay. That's incredibly helpful, because I think you touched on it before, that people just want to go to Fiverr, here, do my blogs, here, do this and that, like it's a task. And then missing the whole branding piece of the fact that we're not just doing content for the sake of SEO, or I just need to get it out there. We have to build a connection and trust. And that comes from the consistency and having that clear identity. And I feel like that's the piece gets missed.
Oh, huge.
Task, right?
Like it would be like Apple suddenly releasing an MP3 player. And people going, whoa, what's that? And they were just like, oh, we just saw a need for a random player that was cheap and they just released it. Imagine the brand damage, you know, given that Apple is very innovative and forward thinking and very creative and tech first, and suddenly releasing like something like really random. That's what it's like when you produce a blog piece that hasn't even taken into consideration, you know, local knowledge. Like if you go overseas to do it, like it doesn't take into account what people are saying, our vernacular, all of those kind of things, but also taking into account what your brand's purpose is here. If you get someone to just say, oh, I need this quick blog, and you post that, it can do irreversible damage, because what happens is people go, what happened to that brand? Or I don't even understand where this came from. And like you said, Louise, when that email came through and it wasn't that person anymore, that I reckon they got a huge amount of unsubscribes, or at least
I was like, I can't do this.
And that you see how, like, in one email, they probably lost half their list. And what I'm saying is, it's that brand damage is worth a lot. And so it's really important to make sure that you are spending the bit of extra time and money, and also taking into account how it plays into your overarching marketing strategy. That's what gets goals. Otherwise, don't spend the money on Fiverr. It's better to just keep it and avoid that damage.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because in the beginning, he was writing them and he had the time, but I get it. When your business gets to a certain size, you just don't have the capacity, but then you obviously have the money to invest in a copywriter that can then slip in,
replicate it. And that's exactly. And I do that for a lot of my clients. And a lot of this is the question I always get asked, is how can you be us? But in all honesty, it does not take long. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, but it's like I've worked with, you know, finance companies and crypto and tech and all these, like, you know, even business coaches that have been in the industry for years. And I just, all it takes is a quick 15-minute Zoom call to really sort of talk me through what you want to do with this piece. What's the objective? What are we trying to do? I can get heaps and heaps of personality out of that and replicate it on there. And most of the times, and then I send it back to them and they make tweaks to their voice. And what would have taken, you know, if you think about 15-minute Zoom chat and 5 minutes of checking, and they got a product that in 20 minutes that they would have spent hours doing, and their customers are happy. See, it's like a win-win-win, right? And that's what we're trying to do as copywriters.
Yeah, wow, that's just fantastic. And that's just really good for people that are scaling and don't have the bandwidth to do it themselves, because you really can. And I talk about this all the time, how much brand damage you can do by just pumping out emails every week, or, you know, the e-newsletter. We had new team members join this week. Like, no one cares, you know, like there's so much content that goes out that's irrelevant.
Oh my God. Okay. So this is another thing a copywriter does. Sorry, I'm really passionate for giving those. Is this is like a copywriter vets some of these things. So I have been writing for another client for years as well, and I've been doing their newsletter. And we promised that the promise that we delivered was that we were always going to give them financial advice every month. And so it was fine, and it was getting growing and growing and growing, because people were going, hey, like, I want to know about gold. And we were doing little snippets of gold and then selling it, saying, hey, talk to our team for more personalized advice. One month they did exactly that, Louise. What they did is they said, oh, we're going to talk about our team today. And I said, look, I get where you're coming from. However, people sign up because you promised them financial advice. And if you do a whole month on the team, you're going to get people that go, oh, this is not why I signed up. And I said, maybe we can do it as a subtext. Like, we could do financial tip and then a bit about our team, but not the whole thing. But anyway, they didn't take my advice, and they lost 50% of their subscriptions. Like, literally in 1 week, they had planned all four team members, and they culled it immediately the next 3, and we went back to financial advice. So it's what it is a copywriter can look at things objectively and help you make those decisions. And sometimes it's confronting, because you know, when your brand's messaging is up for change, and we come up with something that's slightly different to what you're used to, but for the right reasons and the justified reasons, it can be quite confronting, because a brand will go, but we've always said it this way. And you're like, but this is why I'm changing it. And that's what a copywriter does, is fresh perspective and consulting.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's just such an important part of your brand.
Huge.
What you're putting out there. And I think so many people think it's like a numbers game, where it's like, yeah, I'll have some unsubscribes, but then, you know, I'll get 1 or 2 sales out of it. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like, how much damage have you done? Diminishing
returns. Yeah, because if you think about it, every time you do that, you're going downwards and downwards and downwards. and it can really damage it, especially, you know why? Because customers have so much choice today. Customers have infinite choice. They literally, when they're looking for something, a product or a service or something that you do, they have 5 tabs open with all your competitors and you. And if your messaging doesn't cut through and show some relevance quickly, they just leave. Like it's easy for people today with digital avenues and shopping. With, you know, our phones have how many apps on them? Everything's at our fingertips. If you don't cut through the noise and give them something of relevance, it's so easy to change.
And that goes through to social media posts. If you're just putting out, and I try and talk to my clients about, you know, don't just be doing the generic quotes, quoting other people. Create
LinkedIn's
your
full of
own
it.
quotes.
LinkedIn
create your own, create your own perspective, share your own ideas. It has to be coming from you, not sharing other people's stuff.
Yes.
And like, you know, having bland posts that then people just stop paying attention to. Like, it's better to do quality over quantity.
Agreed.
And the same with people that want to write a book. It's like, well, do you want to write a book just because you want to be an author, or do you have something that's going to be of extreme value to people that they're going to want to read? Because everyone every 2 minutes is writing a book. And I remember reading probably an agency owner that we both know who runs an SEO agency who wrote a book, and I read it and it was awful.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And what damage does that do then?
Oh, it's especially because if you can't do it well, it's more damage. And look, we can't predict everything. Like, we're not perfect humans, but at the same time, you can take measured success. I mean, Louise, what you do is you guide people on how to perfect their brands as a brand specialist. And you can see it's a full plan, it's a full strategy. It's like, your brand is a delicate thing. It's your most important asset. And your customers determine its fate based on what you do. And so if you don't take a calculated approach as to what you do, then you can do that damage. And sometimes it can be completely reversible. And so it's all about, like, you know, we can't predict the future, but it's about making calculated decisions about what's going to benefit your brand and what's going to draw people to you. And that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
I've loved every second.
Coming on.
Yeah, I just can't. So sorry. I'm very passionate. So got to curb it a little bit.
No, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all these strategies and ideas with us. That's amazing.
You're welcome. I've loved it. Thank you so much for the invite, Louise.
Thanks. Bye.